And welcome back, everyone. I gotta go get my charger from my computer in a little bit so I can do the last one if that is gonna come out today. But this is obviously yesterday, the Naruto one. But we are now wrapping up the What If Ichigo was part Saiyan video series. We're in the Thousand Year Blood War arc now. A few minor things. Someone basically brought up a very good point about like the training of training as a Shinigami in the Shinigami body, your spiritual body versus your physical training. They likened it to the Otherworld training where their bodies just had different makeup, so they could take a lot more strain. Versus such as when Goku learned Super Saiyan 3 and trained for that, and his living body really couldn't handle it very well. The only difference I would say here is that there wasn't a split of spirit and physical. Their physical bodies were not separated from their ghost. In Dragon Ball, they just said they got to keep their bodies. They still have a physical form. They can still be seen and everything like that. They're just dead. So I'd say that's maybe a bit of a difference, but not a bad analogy, I think. And someone did also, and I commented on it, that Saiyan hybrids are stronger than pure blood Saiyans. First off, that's not always true. Look at Broly. But second off, Saiyan hybrids have more potential than their pure blood counterparts because you're strengthening the bloodline. But that really seems to only extend to like the first generation. I used Pan as an example. Pan is about a quarter Saiyan, and she's certainly stronger than the average kid and the average fighter, definitely, but she doesn't seem to have the levels of potential that her dad did. So I think and Ichigo, as I said, is anywhere from a fifth to sixth, maybe an eighth Saiyan. So he doesn't have that type of potential like, say, Gohan does. Plus, Gohan, I honestly think, is a bit of an anomaly because Trunks isn't even that much stronger than his dad. In fact, really wasn't that much stronger than his dad, if at all. Because his dad went Super Saiyan, and as far as we could tell, his dad was stronger than him still. We know that Trunks got a stronger form against Cell when he was training, but that's only because he was able to unlock it training, and it's because it's not that Vegeta couldn't do it. It's because Vegeta wasn't stupid enough. They even said Vegeta couldn't even do it. He's probably not stupid enough to do it. Like, they do point out that, yeah, Trunks didn't actually surpass his dad. But, yeah, so, and by all accounts, Trunks was still weaker than Vegeta throughout. So, I despite the fact that Saiyan hybrids seem to have more potential, that seems to have only applied to Gohan. There's some maybe Goku just got some good genes in there, but regardless. Anyway, we cut to the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. Now, the opening of the 1,000-Year Blood War arc would be the same. Sasakibe is killed by Driscoll. Driscoll's the one who kills him. The war is declared. The Arrancar goes to meet Ichigo and the gang. Ichigo is able to pretty easily handle this guy even without transforming. And so that leads them to Hueco Mundo because Neliao comes to ask for Ichigo for help. Now, so the invasion of the Soul Society happens as usual, but I'm trying to remember every one of the Sternritters I can remember. It's Sternritter J, the jail. Oh God, it's bugging me. What is the jail's name? Like, I've got a good memory for a lot of these things. Like, I can remember every Zanpakuto name, but maybe not the release command, though most of them. It's on the tip of my tongue. I can see it in my name, or they say it a bit. See his name. No, I can't find. I'm gonna find it. Kirige Opie. That was it. Kirige Opie. Who, as our first introduction, a lot of people have said this. He's an underrated, like, he's a really good villain, and he's not even our main villain. But he is Sternritter J, the jail, and he is powerful. And so him and Ichigo would be duking it out. The only difference here is that eventually Ichigo goes into Super Saiyan and is basically now just completely overpowering his ass. Keep in mind, Ichigo at this point doesn't have, either he doesn't use it or doesn't have his Hollow Mask anymore. I think it got asked by Kubo at one point what happened with that, and I think he gave an answer. I can't remember what the answer was, though. Anyway, I digress. But he still doesn't use we know he didn't use it, so we're going to assume he either can't or just doesn't choose to. But he does have his Super Saiyan forms, which he does transform into and can completely curb stomp Kirige's ass. Only for him to get trapped in the prison, the jail, relatively quick. Now, that being said, I think Ichigo does ultimately break out of there a bit quicker because his power is a lot greater here, but also because the jail's ability is designed to hold Shinigami, not Quincy. And therefore not Saiyans. So if you add the power of a Saiyan to the Quincy power that Ichigo was unlocking, he's probably going to break out of there quicker. Although I imagine Byakuya is still going to be on death's door. We know he survives. And he ultimately shows up to confront Yhwach. Now, in that fight, Ichigo and him were clashing, but Ichigo was clearly not really winning that fight. Here, if you add a really rage-fueled Saiyan Ichigo, and I like his full brain Bankai better than his original Bankai. If I can get a copy of that Bankai, I'd love it. But I literally have his Bankai right here. This was the first sword I ever got too. And I haven't pulled that in a while. Still looking good, my friend. Still looking good. Yeah, awesome. Bankai. But anyway, he pulls it out and he just does the ching. It's like, are you the one who did this? And if I am, then he just transforms. And he's going full rage Super Saiyan 3 right now, which is 400 times his base. So the question is, I guess, how strong do we think Yhwach? I'm always gonna do Yhwach, whatever. Yhwach was compared to Ichigo at this point, because we know they were clashing effectively, but he really wasn't struggling with Ichigo. 400 times though? I'm sorry, I don't care who you are, including Yhwach. That is going to give you a problem, to the point where I actually think, in order for him to, because Ichigo is going hard and fast, his blute is not able to handle it, so he's cutting into his arms. Ichigo just literally just gashes him horribly. So what he could use the Ausch Valen, and even Jugram, Hashiwal. Even Hashiwal is like, I won't be able to stop him at this point. So in order for him to pretty much just counter Ichigo's power, because Ichigo only has a little bit of time left before he craps out in Super Saiyan 3, although he's managed to work out a little bit of the kinks with it, and he's in his Shinigami body, so his body can take it better. He comes in and just Bankai, and just activates Zanka no Tachi. That little plot point that never got addressed that hopefully maybe Kubo will address, or they'll address in the remaining 2 cores of the 1,000-year Blood War arc. That little thing. It's like, oh yeah, he still has Zanka no Tachi, one of the most hacked Bankais in existence. He activates it briefly to basically, because it does the same effect here. It destroys Ichigo's Bankai. Granted, you don't have the 2 pieces here, but it still destroys it. And the sword can still probably be reforged. But he activates it, just like, what? And Ichigo has the back turn. He's like, thank you. And Yhwach is still just huffing and breathing. He's hurt. Like, he's legitimately injured. You're to think that even that part of you, could surpass even your Quincy and Shinigami side, Ichigo Kurosaki. You really are something ferocious. It's frightening. And Ichigo's now out of Super Saiyan 3. He's barely able to hold on to Super Saiyan 2, but he's still there. Just, what do you mean? This power's like, you don't know anything about your heritage, your mother's, or even your lineage beyond that. Because Yhwach would be someone who would know. He's over 1,000 years. He's way older than anyone else that's still alive. And he probably does have an idea of when the Saiyan came down to Earth and started, interbreeding with the population. So he may very well have knowledge of the Saiyan lineage within Ichigo. And that's another reason he wanted. He's a perfect hybrid. And we must have, plus, my son born in darkness. My son born, maybe you would say it more like my son born in primal darkness, as him and Hashiwal leave. And so, after the fact, they meet up with the Royal Guard. Royal Guard says, you're coming with us. And so, yeah, you'll train with us. And, yeah, he goes through the whole Namaya thing. Uetsu thing. Yeah, Uetsu and Namaya. I got the right name, right? And obviously, first they go and meet Hikifune. And then they go to Namaya. And then Ichigo learns the truth about his heritage. A new Zanpakuto is forged. And he goes through more training than just the Zanpakuto, which we'll get more into that later. But his new Zanpakuto would probably look similar. I would be willing to say they'll give it a little bit of that jaggedness that the full bring Bankai had on the tips, to add a little bit of that Saiyan gruff in there, just a little bit. And we would then cut to the aftermath, not the aftermath, him showing up in Soul Society. Maybe he's able to move even faster than before, which would mean that he would probably get there before, honestly, he'd get there right at the defeat of Gremmy. Like before the Bambis try to jump Kenpachi, which, by the way, side note, I saw some people really like just, there was like a poll, and people have their opinions, it's fine, but a poll of like who would win, Bambi or pre-awakening Zaraki. And a lot of people said Zaraki. People were like, Zaraki became a victim of the Bambis. I'm like, are you an idiot when you argue that point? Because you know he just got done throwing hands with Gremmy and was in a bad state even for Kenpachi. Like, for the fact that Kenpachi wasn't in a good state shows you how tough Gremmy was. And yet he was still able to try to fight. And it took still a lot of effort to actually put him down by the Bambis. So don't give me this, he was a victim of the Bambis. That's just you trying to argue in favor while ignoring the facts. Regardless, he would show up right when Kenpachi defeats Gremmy. He's like, Kenpachi's not in good shape, but he's actually still can fight if he had to. It's like, and Kenpachi's like, Ichigo. Yay, Kenpachi. Long time, man, you don't look so rough. I wish I could say the same for you. Looking good in those threads. But it looks like, however, and the Kenpachi and him are kind of squared off. It looks like we've got company. And so, it's Kenpachi and Ichigo back to back duking it out with not just the Bambis, but there was also Basby. There was it was Basby. It was, what's the name of it? Him. Robert Akutron. It was Nana Najiku. And, oh God, there was one other one. Hold on. I have all the Stern Murder actually literally right up in front of me here. Okay, it was, stupid site. Come on, give me the Quincy again, please. Give me the Quincy again, please. Show me the money. Okay, Robert Akutron, Basby was there. These guys were dead. Katniss, Kangdu was dead at this point. Giselle, it was, okay, we're missing some, Lilieto, Minas, or Minas, or whatever. Nana, I want to say there was one more, wasn't there? Pepe was in the background. He wasn't actually fighting yet, I don't think. Regardless, 7-on-2, and then the other guys show up, and Kenpachi's like, normally I'd say don't mess in with my fight, but I guess if you guys could earn a little bit, or I guess you guys could have a little fun too. And so there, it's a group fight. Kenpachi is still able to fight, which is very important because he could one-on-one, he could almost certainly clean through any of the Bambis, even in that state he was in. One-on-one. The problem is they ganged up on him in a weakened state. If he were at peak physical condition, they were all effed. And it's kind of proven to the point that when the Bambis are still around after the 1,000-Year Blood War arc in Can't Fear Your Own World, and when Kenpachi showed up, and they were there because they were all like teaming up to stop Tokinada, they were starting to be like, oh shit, because now it's like, he's not hurt anymore, he's in peak condition and we're lunch meat. That's what that was. Ichigo probably would be duking out mostly with Candace, maybe a little bit of Basby as well, whereas Kenpachi's probably duking out with Menace, maybe Little Toto, maybe even Giselle. By the way, for those who would be wondering if Giselle's zombie ability, where her blood spurts out and whatever it spurts out on, she controls it as a zombie, would work on Kenpachi, the immediate answer to that, I would say, is no. The reason to that is, even though she can control captain level opponents, we know that Ryatsu is a big component of this, and we know that's part of her ability. She clearly has a lot to be able to control 2 captains plus a lieutenant. But Kenpachi, we know for a fact, like, dwarfs most of the other captains at that point. In fact, all of the other captains. He actually is that much stronger than them. And Kubo has confirmed he is the strongest straight pure Shinigami. So that's one issue, is that he's just way too powerful, I think, for it to work on. And B, even then, we've seen him nag abilities where it should have just worked. I.e., Mayuri's Fear Factor 4 with his Agasoki Jizo. So, no, if he slices Giselle, she's not, I believe technically Giselle is actually a guy, but we'll say she. I think if Giselle gets cut like straight in half and thinks it will like Kenpachi will just be affected, like, and he feels like it tingles a little bit. Is there something up with your blood? And it's like, it's like, and he just takes her head off. It's like, it's like, whatever. Moving on, like goes into another opponent. Eventually, though, Yhwach and the others go to the Soul Palace. All that will go the same. They have to go and try to rescue the Soul King, obviously. And so eventually Kenpachi does get healed up as well. He's actually in a much better condition here. He's pretty much back at peak because he wasn't in such dire condition as he was in the original. And even then, when we see how he recovered pretty well. So yeah, he pretty much be peak again. They all go up on their own accords. Ichigo, and honestly, the fights all would go very much the same here. The only difference changes once you get to Ichigo versus Yhwach. He goes into his hollow form, but the difference is his hollow merged form, his hybrid form, whatever you call it, his awakened form. Except now he also has a tail attached to that. He's got this fur on there. Essentially, what he's done is he's activated like a version of Super Saiyan 4 added on with his hollow powers, which, yeah, he was strong enough to be a legit threat to Yhwach at that point, strength-wise. Now, how strong is Ichigo by the end of the series? I mean, right now he's like unimaginably strong comparatively. He's just, because Super Saiyan 4's multiplier, while never fully established, is believed to be like a 4,000 plus. So he's actually kind of dwarfing Yhwach for a little bit. Then Yhwach activates the Almighty, and Ichigo's screwed. Now, when the question here ultimately is like, by the end of the series, how strong is Ichigo really? Because we know Yhwach actually took away his Quincy powers, which were not giant, but were a significant part of his power set. Which means by the end now, then Tsukishima comes, uses the Book of the End, basically says, oh yeah, that didn't happen. And Ichigo, by all accounts, should have his Quincy powers back, right? Well, and he's a Soul King candidate. But the problem here is, I think, a multiple-fold issue. To be a Soul King candidate is not about power, because Ginjo is also a Soul King candidate. I think a lot of people forget that, don't understand this part about being a Soul King candidate. It's not about your level of power, at least not per se. I think it has to do more with like the contents of your soul and what is the components of it. Because Ichigo is a perfect hybrid. So in Yhwach, while just a Quincy, he was a pure Quincy and a son of the Soul King. So and he absorbed a lot of the Soul King. So that still works. Hikone is also a perfect hybrid, which means basically I think it's less about the power, although you still need to be powerful. It's less about the power and more that you need to, it's what your soul manifests kind of as. I guess if that makes any sense. Still, Ichigo would still, I say all this because when Ichigo loses his powers, he would still have his Saiyan powers and Shinigami powers, really. And then so when he comes back, he's still immensely powerful. Again, cleaving Yhwach in two, all that. And even then, obviously his Zanpakuto breaks apart. Basically, his Bankai became his original Shikai, which I found that to be weird. Hopefully, the anime is going to have a better answer for the end than that, because that needs some answers. But regardless, Ichigo going all out, Getsuga, Tensho, with all of his, not just his Quincy heritage, all that, but his Saiyan heritage. You see like the ape roar behind him, and he just cleaves Yhwach down. Ultimately, then, that would lead us to later on in the series, which then would mean that you have the birth of Kazuma? What's Ichigo's son's name? Kazumi? It's really bugging me that I don't know his son's name. Let's see here. What is your son's name, Ichigo? Tell me your secrets. His son's name is Kazumi Kurosaki. That's what it was. Okay. Kazumi is now 1/16th Saiyan at the lowest rank, or at least like 1/12th or something like that. but we know is still exceptionally powerful. So, yeah, Ichigo being part Saiyan, does it play a huge factor changing a lot about the story? No, it doesn't. Like, for example, I honestly, most changes to the Bleach story, going to be flat out honest with you, is it going to change a lot? Because Yoa's Almighty is just that freaking hacks. There's really not a lot you can do to the story of Bleach to change the ultimate ending, more or less. Unless you do something that causes the story to kind of stop and then you want just to win. But regardless, that didn't happen here. Either way, though, that's the end of this particular What If series. I will put a poll up probably later today, Friday, yesterday, for what the next option will be for a What If series. I'll put it in the comments below. Until then, or I'll put it in the community post. I still got one more What If to do, but I'm actually almost caught up. Hooray! Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time.